Testing, testing. All right, we up. All right, guys, in this gear review, we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to talk about why I regret getting this microphone, which is called the Shure SM57. And hopefully along the way, you can learn about how to choose the right microphone for your situation and avoid the same mistake that I did. Okay, before I begin, I do want to say that I don't think this microphone sounds bad whatsoever. However, it also doesn't sound the absolute best in terms of dynamic mics I've owned. You guys have already seen my video on the Shure SM7B, which would be my ideal dynamic microphone. I've seen a lot of videos that talk about how to make this microphone sound like the Shure SM7B. Actually, go ahead and put the windscreen on that they suggested that would help it make it sound like the Shure SM7B more. This is called the Shure A81WS. I think it also is gray or something like that. Okay, now does it sound more like the Shure SM7B? I'm not entirely sure, and also that took quite a long time to put on. When you first get this thing, if you decide on getting it, you have to sort of like make the hole a lot bigger because it just doesn't fit unless you do that. And it's kind of annoying to deal with, but yeah. And it also doesn't look as good as the Shure SM7B, just comparing the looks wise, but obviously, the Shure SM7B is a lot more expensive and requires more gain, and if you don't have the budget, this is a consideration for a dynamic mic that's a lot cheaper. However, now is a good time to get into the reason why I regret buying this microphone. Number one, the primary purpose of me buying this microphone was so that I could use it in a podcast with my friends, meaning not remotely. It was more so whenever we meet up and we use these microphones. The primary issue was microphone bleed. So this microphone is a dynamic mic, yet the noise rejection is not as strong as a lot of the other dynamic mics that I've used. Granted, the other ones I've used are more expensive. However, I'd rather save that money and buy the pricier option like the Hio PR40 or the Shure SM7B, or now more recently, in the past years, the Shure MV7. Those ones generally just perform way better with noise rejection than this microphone here. So whenever we use this microphone in our podcast, I would always have to deal with a lot of mic bleed from anyone else that's not using the microphone and that's sitting close by or even like just across. This one sort of had the same issue with the AT4040 or basically any condenser microphone that you buy. Oops. And as the person editing the podcast, it is quite annoying that whoever's using this microphone, I have to go into their audio file and always clean it up more so than the other ones. These days, I don't use this microphone at all. If you check out my behind the scenes video on how I actually record those episodes with my friends, you'll see that this microphone is not present. What we usually use is the Shure SM7B, the Hio PR40s, and the Shure MV7, sometimes the Rode Procaster. However, back then we didn't have all those microphones, so we used this one and also the AT4040, and both of them were kind of hectic to have to clean up because if you have a lot of microphone bleed from a lot of different people, it's just not going to sound as good as if the microphone were by itself. So if you're buying this for the purpose of sitting there by yourself talking into it, then it's going to work for sure. It's not going to be a bad microphone. It's a good choice. However, if you're planning on buying this for a podcast where you're in person with other people, I recommend saving your money and buying a microphone with greater noise rejection. So the lesson here is you have to know what you're going to use your microphone for. Things like condenser mics work great if you're alone, but if you're doing a podcast, I do not recommend buying condenser mics because there's going to be a lot of mic bleed for everyone, unless you're using the omnidirectional options on some condenser microphones. However, I still think giving each person an individual microphone is better. So that's just a quick video on my 2 cents on why I regret buying this microphone. Again, it's not a bad microphone, it's just not the right microphone choice for the situation and purpose that I want it for. Let's try to do a small comparison between these two microphones so you can hear the differences in how they sound overall. I'm standing right between them and they're both facing me. Obviously, these mic tests are never perfect because whenever you have one microphone, you can optimize your position to that microphone. However, it's still a decent test to hear the same speech being heard by both microphones. I'm standing right between them and they're both facing me. Obviously, these mic tests are never perfect because whenever you have one microphone, you can optimize your position to that microphone. However, it's still a decent test to hear the same speech being heard by both microphones. It's still a decent test to hear the same speech being heard by both microphones. Okay, so a big difference between dynamic microphones and condenser microphones is that the condenser microphone will pick up a lot more detail. Okay, so a big difference between dynamic microphones and condenser microphones is that the condenser microphone will pick up a lot more detail. You also see that this is facing flat while this is pointing at you. You don't want to be talking into it like this, it's just not going to work well for you. Anyways, this is the comparison between these two. Might not be the best type of comparison, but you get to hear the differences between a condenser mic and a dynamic microphone. If you're going to use a microphone when you're alone and you don't have to worry about sound treatment or whatsoever, then this microphone might be better for you. Okay, so the purpose of this video is really not to do a microphone comparison. It's mainly just to tell my story about why I regret buying this microphone and how you guys can avoid regretting buying a microphone in general. But I just wanted to do that so you guys have an example of what I was talking about. All in all, I still think this is a good microphone, but I'm just not going to be using it because I have better microphones and I'm probably going to end up selling this thing. I just wanted to do a video with it before I let it go. So let's go ahead and remove this thing first. I personally think it looks a lot better like this. It just looks sleeker. I hope you guys got something out of me telling you about my experience with this microphone. And if you did, go ahead and give the video a like and subscribe. I definitely appreciate it because it helps this channel out. I hope you guys have a great day. I'll see you guys in the next video.